Well, hello there, folks. Welcome to Dave Diggs History, the Persian Gulf edition. And I never thought I'd ever be saying something like that, but here we are. This is going to be another attempt to finish up the who, what, when, where, why, and how method of the backstory to what you see right here. Everything's done except the how, and it keeps getting interrupted by current events over in you-know-where. And you may remember my saying in a previous episode, whenever history collides with current events, and I believe it has, current events take precedence. So this is another attempt. Let's get straight into it. We're going to wrap this up because there's a lot more to tell, and we can't get to it till this gets out of the way. So a little bit of a backstory, a recap, if you will, from a previous episode, just to bring you up to speed for this episode. Convoy PQ-17. PQ is a designation for convoys going to Russia with war material. QP, they're coming back. PQ-17 set off in June of 1942 to deliver a large amount of material to the Russians using the Arctic route, going up way up into the Arctic Circle and delivering to ports up there. Well, here's what happened. 35 ships started, 11 made it, and the rest didn't, with significant loss of life. They were intercepted by German air assets, the Luftwaffe, and German U-boats operating out of Norway, which was occupied by the Germans. A loss rate like that couldn't be sustained, and the higher-ups said, we're not going to do this anymore. The Arctic route, we're terminating it until further notice, until such time as things get better, if they're going to get better. For all of 1943, only 50 ships even attempted it. So where does all the the millions of tons of war material stacked up somewhere away from here, how does it get to the Russians? The Persian corridor. That's where we are. Now the how part. How does the material get from the ports on the Persian Gulf to the Russians? We're talking land, sea, and air, of course. The sea is convoys coming through the Persian Gulf, past the Strait of Hormuz, which I think you've probably heard of, go up to the far northwestern end of the Persian Gulf to disgorge cargoes at a port in Basra, Iraq, and Khorramshahr in Iran. Neither port are terribly big. Neither port can handle a great deal of tonnage, which is why we're going to have to explore other options, such as, well, barges. Yes, indeed, barges. There was a barge assembly plant established in Kuwait. Yes, we had troops stationed there in Kuwait long before Desert Storm and Desert Shield. And their job was to, at this assembly plant, which had 2 assembly lines, take prefabricated barges sent from the U.S., assemble them, and push them up the Tigris and Euphrates Rivers with motor launches, which we provided, until they get to a convenient transfer point where the loads can be transferred to a truck, say, or rail, say, for further transport up into some place where the Russians can take over. Now, a sidebar, the company, one of the companies providing these prefabricated barges to the Kuwait assembly facility was the Higgins Company of New Orleans. Does the name Higgins ring a bell? How about Higgins Boat? Do you ever hear of a Higgins Boat? Thought so. The Higgins Boat was probably the premier landing craft for American forces during World War II. They provided some of the prefabricated barges, broken down into pieces, go to Kuwait, assembled, and up those 2 famous rivers they go. That's one way. Another way is by air. Some aircraft were flown in to places like Abadan in Iran and transferred to the Russians there. Russian pilots were there to take it from Iran into Russia. But when the planes arrived in Abadan, they had to be serviced. They had to be checked because they flew from North America to South America to Africa, across Africa, and into Abadan. And don't worry about these names of places. I'm going to do a special episode just with maps so you know where I'm talking about. It's more convenient and more efficient to ship planes over in prefabricated parts stored in crates to be assembled at assembly plants in, well, one of them was in Damascus in Iran, and another was in Abadan in Iran. They're assembled there, pilots take them there, off they go. The white star is painted out, the red star is painted in, they're now Russian planes. But let me get back to the ports for just a second, because really, if the ports aren't able to handle massive amounts of tonnage, nothing's going to flow very fast, and these other places really don't matter. So we looked at the ports, Basra, Karamshar, and a few other really small ones. Basra and Karamshar combined tonnage discharge capacity is perhaps 2,000 tons per month or less. That's not going to work for the amount that's coming. So we rolled up our shirt sleeves and got to work with hammers and nails and bulldozers and graders and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of feet worth of lumber, steel, nuts, you name it. And we built 1,250,000 square feet worth of facilities to handle the traffic at the ports. Storage, warehouses, also shops to build things, like the planes, for instance, and other things that need to be assembled before shipment up. And there's another way to get the material there, by trucks. A massive fleet of several thousand trucks were assembled to be used by the quartermaster department to run up a road line. Don't ask if they're asphalted. Don't ask if they have signals. Don't ask if they're even dirt, okay? Just don't. But they're going to be hauling more material up to some transfer point where the Russians take over and carry it on further. It's Kazvin, K-A-Z-V-I-N. It's to the east of Tehran. I know you've heard of Tehran. It's in all the papers. Now, here's the way that works. A driver will pick up a load in a truck and take it up the road, 2 lanes, sometimes, to a rest camp. And when he feels fatigued, he hands over the truck to some other driver who's waiting to take it, and they take it further north. The driver who brought it there, he goes and has a hot meal, finds himself a bunk somewhere, sleeps, takes an empty back down to the port the next day. That's how it works. And some trucks are arriving in prefabricated boxes to be assembled at truck plants in Iran. And sometimes the Russians give their help to the assemblage. The Americans, we do the same. Some Brits also assemble it's a cooperative effort. And also there are quite a number of Iranian nationals who are hired to do the work. And they, once they're put together, they get driven up to Russia. Let me get back to one little thing about the ports. Once we expand on the ports, particularly Karamshar, by the time it's summer of 1944, Karamshar is the 3rd largest port in terms of tonnage discharged in the world. Total capacity is just shy of 400,000 tons per month. That's a lot of spam, munitions, boots, socks, aircraft, and tanks. Tanks, they come pre-assembled. They come off the boat, ship. pre-assembled. They're offloaded at the ports. They don't go to the Russians by barge, because the barges, 60 feet long, 15 feet wide, 7 tons in weight, have a carrying capacity of 60 tons. The Sherman weighs 38. How many Shermans are you going to put on a barge? One. Not a very efficient way to get lots of tanks to where they need to go. So another way to get them up to Russia is by rail. And that's what this is right here. I'm not going to discuss rail much at the moment because this is the part of the Persian Gulf corridor I know the most about, which means I have a lot of material to tell you about. It takes up a lot of time. I'm going to leave that for an episode all to itself. In the meantime, I hope you found this interesting, perhaps even useful. I appreciate your being here. A like and a subscription will be appreciated. It helps the channel. If you have any questions, leave them you know where down below. I'll do my best to answer them. And until such time as we meet again, whenever that shall be, smoke them if you got them. Keep the home fires burning. It's very essential that communication be maintained between home and abroad for the morale of our people. And if you have any complaints, well, tell it to the chaplain, okay? Diggs out.